all for coming. We're glad to be here. So my name is Brianna Brim. I'm the clinical director of our Occupational Therapy Institute at Salus University, which is a pro bono occupational therapy clinic, and I teach in university. I'm joined by one of our level 2 interns today. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Song, and you can call me Song, and I'm a OT student as Brianna mentioned, and I'm currently doing my level 2 fieldwork at OTI with Brianna, and I'm happy to be here and welcome all you to come.
So today we're going to talk about managing stress through lifestyle redesign and some restructuring. And before we get going, I just want to make sure some of the resources we're going to talk about today are going to probably resonate with some of you a little bit more. Some of them may not really feel like they're the best for you. We're trying to give a really broad overview as to kind of things that are out there and available to you, and have some pretty compelling research as to how they can be helpful to kind of manage stress, manage timelines, manage just kind of reclaiming your life as to how you want it to be. So we fully expect that some of them you're gonna be like, yep, this is a tool for me. And some of them you might say, this one is not really for me, and that's totally okay. That's why we're providing so many. We're also, because we provided so many, not gonna have a ton of time to go through each one and give you like really the thought time that usually we use for some of these tools, but it's more of an introduction, and then you have them, and then Mary Angela is also going to post them online, so you can also go and then download them later if you like one and you want to start over kind of on your own time, okay? We also encourage questions. Feel free to kind of jump in, raise your hand if you have some thoughts or ideas as we start to go with it.
Okay, so maybe you're wondering, are we talking about this topic today? We are occupational therapy practitioners, and we are support individuals through the lifespan to support them to engaging in meaningful activities and occupation that can promote their health and well-being, and to improve their life satisfaction. And we look at our client as a whole, and we know that stress has some negative impact for your health and well-being. So that's why we can introduce this topic, and we think that can benefit our client in the future. So the goals and objectives of today's presentation, we wish we can together to identify how stress impact our activity engagement and life balance, and we wish we can together to analyze our own routine and to see is there any area we can enhance. And we have some activities during this section, and I hope you like it. And at the last, we will provide a lot of tools and resources. We have those handouts to help you to increase those areas we mentioned for the wellness and health. So, next one. So, first, let's talk about stress. We all experience stress, as you know. So, there are some big stress triggers, and there are smaller ones. So, can anyone give me some their experience, what their stressor is, and how they deal with that?
So what are some of your current stressors that are really kind of occupying a lot of your mental space or time? Anyone want to share?
I have a current one. I'm going to New York to see a movie star that I'm madly in love with. And I want to meet. And I'm afraid I won't be able to meet him. Anything can happen. Anything can go wrong. I don't even have a ticket. I'm so afraid that I won't make it on time. All these worries I'm on pins and needles, so I want to go as soon as I can next Wednesday so that I get it over with. Maybe I can get it over with by then and I'll feel better. And I just hope I won't leave feeling so hurt that he won't pose with me with my phone, that I won't want to look at his movies or pictures anymore.
Oh, so there's a lot of anticipation and expectation there, certainly, and there's a lot of levels of stress to that one with the potential for travel, and, I'm sure all of us, any kind of travel right now is especially stressful.
Yes.
And is anyone else kind of dealing with something that's just occupying a lot of your space or a lot of your energy? Yeah.
Well, like everybody, everything was in the news today, and
So if it gets too much for me, we look at world news, my husband and I.
Yeah.
I just don't, I do something else.
That's fair. You know, I think watching the news is a anxiety and stress inducing for a lot of people, and even just how is this going to affect me, right? There's a lot of unknowns with what you see about how this is going to affect me, what it's going to do. And I think that's a great example. And I think that's the thing is with stress, we can also all identify that what's going on in our own individual lives, there's universal stressors, and then there's a lot of things that might be kind of subjective to us. And for stress, we know it's cumulative. We know that for every person it builds, and it builds in different ways. We kind of say stress is in the eye of the beholder, because things that are stressful to me may not be stressful to you, even in the same circumstances, and vice versa. So kind of learning how to identify our stressors and manage them is actually one of the key points. At this point, for most of the people we work with who are older adults, a lot of you have already developed some really strong strategies for managing stress because you've probably experienced a great deal up into this point of your life. So we're hoping to introduce some kind of new concepts in research related to stress management and to try to kind of get us to think about different things a little bit. Because right now, we all are aware that our base level stress, while it may have been here a couple years ago, just with the pandemic and everything that's changed, we have a higher baseline level, and that affects us over time. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how that can actually physically and cognitively affect us. So if you're feeling that you're maybe not as 100% sharp as you used to be, that's actually probably stress. That's actually that baseline stress building on us. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so thank you for when I mentioned those. And for stress, it is the body physically responds for the demands. Like it can be like, as you mentioned, like can happen for just that, like things happens in the future, or it can be chronic, like maybe something like you experience and it's cause chronic stress for yourself. And like Brenda mentioned, stress can cause a lot of negative effect for our brain and can affect our memory and can increase the risk of chronic disease such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and it has a lot of influence for our sleep, which is like have further negative impact. So, but things have two sides, right? Not all stress is negative. Sometimes stress can be protective measure for our body, like to help us to motivate to do something, like help us to like increase our resilience and to help us to improve ourselves. So, but if you experience prolonged stress, that maybe brings some like negative effect for our body. So to sum that is, if we have too much stress, we do not have good way to cope with that. That will decrease our engagement in our life activity.
So it's important to point out when we talk about too much stress, ineffective coping mechanisms leading to decreased like participation and engagement, this does not have to be at a clinical level. So I think when we say that, people think, oh, that sounds like depression. And it certainly could be that clinical level of depression. But for many folks, it actually just starts playing out in very small and subtle ways. You know, delaying certain activities that you know you need to do. Maybe you're not getting to the laundry as timely. Some, you know, very silly things to start off with. Maybe you notice your dishes piling up next to the sink a little bit quicker. Things like that kind of end up playing in and then taking away opportunities. Because how many of you have kind of looked at your house and been like, wow, my house is a disaster right now, and then you have to give up an entire Saturday just to kind of reorganize that, and that's a deviation from how you normally would operate your home. And we're hearing more and more of this, and there's more and more coming out that with this high level of baseline stress we're all feeling, that's actually impacting people to a greater extent, and they're seeing just the inability to now take time back and use their daily schedules the way that they used to use them.
Yeah, so as mentioned, that engage in meaningful activities can associate a lot of positive outcomes for our health. So what is meaningful activities? Like meaningful activity can be something like you feel happy and you are enjoyable, just like maybe watching TV with your family members and do some exercise, walking your dog. And it can be something like you feel accomplished. Like maybe, like Brianna mentioned, that declutter your home is stressful, but when it's done, and you will feel happy for what you've done. So, so engaging in meaningful activities can improve our physical and mental health, and to promote our healthy cognition, and to improve our daily functioning, and also important, like to save money on our healthcare costs. So that can introduce our topic, like how to actively engage in meaningful activities. We can restructuring our lifestyle to participate that.
So when we talk about meaningful activities too, I think for a lot of people, meaningful activities, that word sounds like it always has to be kind of like chosen things. Like I'm gonna go to the park, I'm going to make time with my friends. It doesn't always have to be these kind of nice self-care things that a lot of us would put in the box. A lot of times, like Sung mentioned, just decluttering your house or reorganizing it, it's something that you have to do, that you know you have to do, but after it's done, it brings you that sense of pride, accomplishment, or decreased stress. So even if it's something that you need to get done, I don't particularly love to pay bills. I can't imagine a lot of you are are on an opposite boat as me, but when I'm done, I feel a little bit of a release of stress, right? It's off my plate, I've kind of managed it, I've taken a look at my finances, I know where things are. So meaningful activities can literally be anything that gives you that sigh of relief after, whether it be something kind of chosen and exciting and beneficial, or just something that you gotta get done because you know you gotta get it done.
Yeah. So we mentioned life restructuring. So what it is, it's positive change from restructuring the person during their daily routine. So the key of this is to build a healthy habit into our daily routine that is sustainable and help to improve our quality of life. We have our own like prioritizes and approaches and aspirations, and we have our own views of what is like important to us, how we can live our life meaningful. So the ability to experience meaningful in the context of one's occupation is the key components of successful aging. When we are having like challenges during our life, we need to change our like roles, routines, and all those stuff to keep our life balanced. And we can look all those habits, roles, and routines through like dimensions of wellness.
So dimensions of wellness is a really popular theory that people are using right now to kind of explain why you don't always feel great if a single area of your life is kind of out of balance. So when we look at the dimensions of wellness, there's 8 dimensions, and we look at intellectual, emotional, physical, social, occupational, meaning like work or volunteer, financial, environmental, and spiritual. And you can kind of, they're kind of self-explanatory as to what each of these mean, but if we look at all 8 systems in the dimensions of wellness, this theory and the research behind this theory kind of says even if just a single area is really out of balance, and balance looks different for every single person, if it's a single area out of balance, it's going to cause an increased level of stress that may be disproportionate to the actual severity of the imbalance also. So that's an important thing. So if you've ever kind of felt that like one area of your life is just not where you need it to be, and you somehow feel like it's taking up all of your time, this is kind of why we say that this is happening. When it's out of harmony, we can't achieve kind of wellness, we feel higher levels of stress. If a single area of this wheel is impacted and kind of out of that balance, it also makes it harder to adjust with other disappointments, frustration, or anything else. So, when the saying, don't cry over spilled milk comes to my mind. Normally, we probably wouldn't cry over spilled milk, but if you've had a really difficult emotional week where you're dealing with a lot of stress from maybe a friend group, maybe you're having some family situations that are causing you a lot of emotional distress, that spilled milk could feel absolutely insurmountable. And we've all kind of had those weeks where just the slightest thing, that's why.
So, based on that, we will do an activity that we have a handout for that.
So when we're thinking about lifestyle restructuring, it would seem pretty obvious, but the first thing we kind of need to figure out is, what does our lifestyle look like? Where are we spending our time? What are we doing? Because we can't kind of think about reorganizing it if we don't know how we're using our time right now. So if you look at your handouts,
a handout like that called pie chart, life balance pie chart. It has a big circle on the corner.
Don't go too fast here.
Yeah, you're good, no worries, we'll give
No,
you time, don't
take
you
your
fret.
time.
You're talking about the pie?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know how to divide it up, so.
Where is it?
So, so these activities can help us to visualize how we spend our time during our daily routines. So the instructions is like, first, we list 5 or 6 aspects of your life that you spend most of your time on, like sleep, like social, like to watching TV or reading.
Where do we list them?
So usually we just start kind of down the bottom here. So I would recommend kind of in this blank space. And again, in the interest of time, we're going to kind of explain how these processes work.
Sure.
Usually these things take like 20 to 30 minutes to kind of really deep dive into it. So we're going to explain how to do it. And the nice thing is it's recorded, so you can also go back and listen to us. So usually in like the blank space, I'd start by listing like, what do I do in a typical day? What do I do in a typical week? And just start by listing them. And then start to break that down into how much time do I actually spend on this? And what we find is that often our perceptions of how we're spending our time are very different than how we're actually spending our time. So kind of taking a serious thought about, okay, I spend about 3 hours on this. So kind of jotting that down. I spend about 3 hours a day doing this. I spend about 2 hours a day doing this. I try to get 10 hours of sleep, but I really only get 6, or I really only get 8. And then organizing that into a pie chart to really kind of look at where is my day spent, because a lot of times then we can stop ourselves and say, you know what, I'm using time or resources in places that I don't really want to be using resources. So I do this every once in a while, especially at work, because if you think about it, you know, an average work day, where am I spending my time, especially when I'm falling behind on things like answering my emails or scheduling my appointments or things like that. And then I find where I'm wasting time, where the time gets wasted, or where the time is really not being used how I want to use it, which is the most important thing when we're thinking about a lifestyle restructuring, okay?
Yes. So like Brandon mentioned, after you finish this, you can think about that questions, like where I spend my time on, where I spend my time I'm not intended to. Like for me, like I spend a lot of time for meal preparation, like I spend 3 or 4 hours per day for that. And I feel like I didn't realize that before I do the pie chart. So now I know I need to maybe cut down some time to like go outside, to do some exercise, to like enjoy the sunshine outside, which will benefit for myself. So after doing that pie chart, you will find something and you can reflection on the questions on the PowerPoint and to answer that.
So the bottom section 2 here, what you can kind of do is things that you find you're spending, when you talk about categories, the lowest amount of time on or the highest amount of time on, and determine if that's appropriate for what you really want to do. So this is a good way to, again, to kind of reflect on what am I actually doing with my time, because we all think we're really good at time management until it comes down to actually do the time management, and then we can find kind of those holes where we can reclaim stuff. This is also really important if you have that list of things that you're like, wouldn't it be great if I could get to this? Wouldn't it be really nice if I could start doing that again? This is how we can start doing that pretty effectively, by carving out some time. Because if, just like Song said, she's spending 3 hours a day on meal prep. That's a lot of time cooking, right? So then we can start to, yeah. I was like, yes, that is a lot of time. So when we start to see that, then we can be like, you know what, I got to increase some of my convenience items. What can I do to make this a little bit easier on myself so that I can do those things that I want to do? So this is a great activity to kind of start this process. All right. So then kind of reflect on some of these questions. What surprised you? What are you spending more time on than you really intended to? Are there other areas that you want to, just like what we talked about? And then what changes do we want to make? This is a great place to start. There's some handouts and a pen for you, sir. Okay, go ahead, Son.
So next we'll talk about the wellness strategies and resources. And the first topic is time management. We kind of touched a little bit during our pie chart, but we will talk about deeper in this section. And like we all know, time management is important and it's very important in our life. So what is time management? Is the way that we planning and organizing our time to finish the separate task during our life. So like we have our own habits, we have our own routines, and we need so many time to finish that, and we need to organize our time in certain way. So the benefit of time management is it can reduce stress, definitely, and it can increase productivity rate, and it can improve the sense of control, and it can help us to achieve our balance in life.
So with time management skills, a lot of us have kind of an arsenal of time management skills that we've used in the past, but what's important to remember is that anytime we have a major life transition, we need to kind of reevaluate what's working for us. So if you've recently retired, if you've recently started volunteering again now that COVID has kind of died down, if you've recently started working again, those are all major life transitions. Maybe you've recently had some grandchildren and you're going to be helping out with their care. These are all major life transitions that we need to kind of rethink about how am I allocating my time again, because anytime we have that, there's a high likelihood that our stress level is going to go up, and there's so much research that says every time stress goes up, cognitive ability goes down, and that's at any age. So it does not matter. This is for young adults, this is for older adults. The second our stress increases, our cognitive capabilities decline automatically. So having these kind of things in your back pocket to pull out can kind of help mitigate that so that we can get back to our typical functioning level right away. Yes.
Is the cognitive decline reversible?
It's absolutely, and it's temporary, and we see this. So how many, again, and think about how this plays out into silly little things day to day. So you're under a lot of stress because of maybe it's health, maybe you're moving, maybe you're starting a new role in your life, and you start to notice you're doing what you're like, oh, that was really silly of me, or that was really stupid of me. When you start to say those things, that's usually that cognitive decline. So maybe you had a list of you had a list of things that you needed to get. You forgot a really common grocery. Silly little mistakes. You had a list of errands you had to do, and you did them in an order that had you schlepping all over instead of going in the nice route. Silly mistakes. That's the kind of cognitive decline we see with stress, and we see that decreased attention. So it's really high level skills. It absolutely fluctuates back and forth, and it's something that just starts and stops and starts and stops.
I tend to be thinking not what I'm doing, but what I have to do next. I put food in the wrong place. I put things, and then I can't find them.
That's exactly what we're talking about. But we're all very aware. I think as we age, we become hyper aware of the potential for cognitive changes with aging. And so we start to attribute that to maybe this is my age. It's probably not your age. It's probably your stress level. And we see that in any age bracket. I teach 22 to 28. Most of our students are 22 to 28. And I can honestly tell you that I can tell when the class is at a stress level because I ask very simple questions that I know they know the answer to and they can't find it. That's stress changing their cognition. It's at any age.
It happens. So, like, how can we effectively manage our time? We can by doing task prioritization, we can planning ahead, and we can use our time effectively, and we can complete our task in a time manner. And the steps to achieve that is to set up goals and set up reasonable and expectations and make a schedule or modify your plan and goals when it is necessary.
Reasonable is the key word here. We all set unreasonable goals, and that's why this is so challenging. So reasonable is the key. And we'll kind of talk about ways to kind of do that. So the first thing we need to do is task prioritization. Ask ourselves what's valuable to me, what's important to me, what do I need to do? And again, the trend right now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, self-care. Self-care is anything that makes you feel better. So again, if you feel better after paying your bills, you just did self-care. So what's important, what's valuable? What needs to get done right now? What needs to get done until later? What can wait? What's really not important? And this is a really freeing concept to really ask yourself, is this actually important, and who am I doing this for? Am I doing this for myself? Am I always doing things for other people? If you're a giving person and doing things for other people, you're going to find that a lot of your time is not then going to be able to fulfill you in the way that you want it to. We use the term outsourcing. Consider outsourcing when necessary. Not every task that you do needs to be done by you. And this is something that can be really hard, especially if you're a type A personality or someone who's used to kind of being in control or running the show, thinking, where can I actually outsource things? So we see these kind of common things like lawn care. That's a lot of times, for a lot of people, that's not something that they value. Maybe you like gardening, but mowing your grass, things like that. Can we give it to somebody else? Can we get it off our plate? Are there extra responsibilities that we're taking on that aren't part of our role? Especially we see this when people have volunteer roles, where maybe you were volunteering for an organization and then we keep getting piled on and piled on and piled on until now you have way more than what you signed up for. Kind of saying, who can take that? How can I outsource? How can I delegate? So the best way to kind of think about task prioritization, and this is one of my favorite techniques to use, I do this all the time, is a brain dump technique. But this brain dump technique takes it to the next level and talks about a 4-square use of it. So the 4-square is nice because it helps you add extra organization. So traditional brain dumps, we just write a list. We try to get everything out of our brain that we think we need to do, want to do, have to check off our list, etc., etc. This way we're organized. So we have a section for thoughts. Don't think too deeply. Kind of write the things that are kind of on your mind. And this could be some things where you're like, I want to get back to yoga. I got to call my friend Susan. Things that just kind of are floating around in space, write them down. Your to-do list specifically. And these are things you have to get done, know are pending, maybe scheduling a dentist appointment, maybe, kind of some of those silly lifestyle things. I got to pay the mortgage, all that kind of stuff. Gratitude. Write down some things that you're grateful for. This can actually be really powerful from stress mitigation, asking yourself, what am I grateful for on the day-to-day basis? People who practice regular gratitude actually have lower levels of stress and lower incidence of chronic illness flares, believe it or not. And then your top 3 priorities. After you've done this and kind of written your to-do list, written your thoughts, wouldn't it be nice's, all that kind of stuff, what really matters? Prioritize for yourself as what you need to get done this day. This is a great exercise. This can be done when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, which is my favorite time to use it, but I know people who use this every morning. They sit down and they do this every morning as kind of part of their thought process of what are my top 3 priorities for the day. Or they do it before bed because having their day planned out for the next day makes them sleep better. Either way, great resource to kind of have in your back pocket.
Okay. So when we have our task prioritizer, we have our task need to be done, and we can set up goals. And we will talking about SMART goals today. And maybe you are wondering how goal can be SMART. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. We use that a lot during our OT school, and I really like it. And we want to create goals that are specific for what we want to do and we want to accomplish, and are able to measure and are doable and reliable, and we can fit in the amount of time we have to accomplish that. So goals can always be re-evolved. Like if we can track our goals and we can upgrade that, we can downgrade that, and we can change some part of our goals. And if the tips is that best SMART goals is always a small goals. We do not have a very big goal, and we can have our several small goals and achieve that, and then finally we can find it's just surprising what we have done.
So let's take a break and talk about this for a second. So there is a handout on SMART goals that can kind of remind you of this. And with some examples on it. So this is less of a do right now, but kind of thinking about after you go through your schedule and what you'd like to get back to. Off the top of their head, you can workshop one of these together. Is there some kind of general goal? And don't worry about the format yet. I'm going to talk you through how to do it. A general goal that anyone has for themselves right now. This could be anything. It could be, I want to walk my dog. I want, regularly, I want to get back to my fitness class that was previously shut down. Anybody have anything kind of general that's kind of on the forefront of their mind? Yes.
This is general, but it's very broad.
Okay.
My first goal in the morning when I get up is, how do I make it through another day?
Okay.
That's a biggie.
That is a big one, absolutely.
But if you take a few minutes to just breathe and focus in on just what do I need to do, I think that helps.
I agree.
Particularly as you get older.
So the concept that kind of, how do I make it through another day? That's a really big kind of, esoteric question, right? That's a giant question for all of us, especially with the overwhelming stress. And again, that higher base stress level that we're all feeling. When we're talking about writing goals, usually we're kind of talking about a specific actionable thing. So when we're talking about SMART goals, that is one of those things where that's actually something where like the gratitude and the top 3 priorities list and the brain dumping is going to be exceptionally helping when you're feeling that kind of overwhelming weight, right? Because that statement, how do I get through another day? We can feel the weight of that, right? That feels heavy, that feels very hard to manage. That's where things like that might be really, really helpful to kind of do. And I agree with you that taking that deep breath, that thinking about it, very helpful in managing that. Structure can also be really helpful. So kind of using that 4-square brain dump, that's exactly the moment where that would say, let's sit down, let's brain dump. What's my gratitude for? What are my thoughts right now? What's overwhelming to feel that, what am I going to get through the day? So you're kind of thinking my top 3 priorities for the day. Absolutely. When we're thinking about SMART goals, a lot of times we're thinking more longer term with some of these goals, maybe like a week goal, a month goal, a year goal. So that's a great example, and I think that plays really well with some of the other tools we're going to use. Does anybody have kind of more something like a day-to-day activity that they'd like to try to get back to or integrate in their life or something along those lines?
Just exercising for so many.
That's a huge one for everybody. I'm sure most of us don't feel like we can get that. So how would we write a SMART goal with exercise? So the first start is we have to pinpoint what exercise. It's not just enough to say I want to exercise. What do you want to do? Do you want to walk? Do you want to go to a class? Do you want to start watching videos? So asking yourself, what kind of exercise is the most important? So what kind of exercise do you want to do?
Walk.
Okay, so you want to walk. When we're talking about SMART goals, specific. That's how specific we want to get. I want to walk. Not just I want to exercise. We have to specifically spell it out. I want to walk. Okay, great. Measurable. Well, to measure something, we have to have a count. So how much do you want to walk? Do you want to walk a distance? Do you want to walk a certain times a week? How do we make that measurable?
Well, they recommend that you walk for, what is it, how many, an hour and a half total during a week.
Correct. So you just around
So
like
30
20,
minutes a day.
like
for
20, like 15, 20 minutes a day is usually somewhere.
For however many times that would get you up to.
So that's a great goal, but how many of you right now, if I said carve out a half an hour a day to walk, feel like you can do that?
I can do that.
Some of you may be able to. For some of you, you're like, when am I fitting this in? When am I fitting this in? It's absolutely So that's already scratched, because if I've already said that's not attainable for myself, this is a useless SMART goal. The second you say this is not attainable, that could be a great long-term goal, to work to 30 minutes a day, every day. Put that in my long-term bin. But let's break it down and make a smaller goal for now, because 30 minutes might be hard, but 10 minutes, does 10 minutes sound hard?
No.
10 minutes I could do.
Yeah.
10 minutes, I could throw a load of laundry in, and before it's even on spin, I could be done and back. 10 minutes I could do. So what if I start writing my goal for 3 times a week at 10 minutes? Now it's very measurable, and I'm hitting that attainable because that doesn't seem overwhelmed. When I read that goal, I'm not overwhelmed, right? When we think about goals, we want to make them small, bite-sized chunks, okay? They're also realistic. 3 times a week I can do. What if I beat this goal? Who cares? Then I move on to my next long-term goal of how I do that. And then timely. How long? I have to set some parameters. When do I want that first goal hit? Do I want to be able to do this within 6 weeks? Do I want to build to 3 times a week in 6 weeks? Or is that by the end of this week I want to have walked 3 times, okay? So we can really easily start with this really big concept of I want to exercise and use our SMART goal parameters to say, I want to go on a walk 3 times a week, and we're going to start not at 30 minutes, we're going to say at 10, because that feels more digestible to us. And I want to do that for 30 days, or I want to do that for 6 weeks. By the end of 6 weeks, I want to have this. That's all we need to do. Here's some really good examples of longer term goals that some people, that we've kind of worked with some of our clients on. I want to call my daughter once a week for the next 2 months. I'm going to paint 3 pictures over the next 3 weeks. Now these are for people who, these were things that were important to them. What's important to you is going to be different, and that's why it's really important that you write your priority list. Try new vegetables. If you're somebody who's like, I hate vegetables, whatever works. Mindfulness exercises. I know there's a mindfulness practice class coming up. If that's something you want to practice, you need to do that frequently. How to set that up, okay? So here's a good little handout for that. Go on.
So when we have our goals, we need to have a system to monitor it. So the way we can to improve our goal monitoring is to, like Brenna said, break out the long-term goals into smaller ones so we can keep tracking that. And the next one is to incorporate our goal tracking into our daily or weekly tasks. And then the third one to set up reward system. Like everyone loves rewards, including myself. The reward is not it can be a big one, like go to a national park or something like go to a trip with your family members, or it can be a very small one, like buy something for yourself and do something you are enjoyable. And this way, by doing this, we can keep us to motivate to finish our goals.
And for some of the goals, completing the goal is a task itself. If you're a painter and that's really what you wanted to get back to, and now you have 3 paintings to show for that, that might be the way you rewarded yourself. For a lot of us, though, if the exercise, maybe it is that then we buy ourselves a new pair of sneakers or something kind of silly that we knew we needed anyway, but now we get it earlier or whatever works for us. But you want to revisit your goals often to make sure that they're working for you and to make sure that you're reassessing if you do meet these kind of micro goals, then advance to the larger goals, advance to the larger goals. To your point as well, when you kind of have those feelings where you wake up and you're like, how do I get through this other day? Goals can be a huge motivating factor to kind of get through that, because if you're like, okay, well, I know today I have to walk my 10 minutes, that might be something, a great reflective time, especially if you have these things where they allow you some free thought. I'm going to take a walk and I'm just going to think about things. That can be really comforting for those kinds of thoughts, to kind of help quell some of that overwhelming stress as well, for sure.
So there are some resources that we provided for monitoring our goals. We have a handout and we print that. The first one is journal, and we can write down our goals and keep us on track. And there is a notepad called Habit Track Notepad. It has 2 parts, and the last one is you can list your goals and habits. On the right side is like time from Monday to Sunday, and you can mark on that side. So there is also a website called Go On Track. It can help us to set up SMART goals, and it can also break our long-term goals into short-term goals. And also it can help us to organize our goals.
These are pretty easy to use. Some of them, all of them can be accessed. So, journaling, pen and paper, if you like to write. There's a lot of science behind writing being brilliant for the brain and for the memory and for stress mitigation, just writing things down. So don't scoff at that, definitely not. But if you're kind of more in the virtual scheme, these are some apps as well as things that can be done on the computer to kind of update you. The apps are cool too if you are using them regularly, because they'll kind of send you those push notifications to remind you to stay on track. But some of you are like, that sounds great, that could be helpful. For some of you are like, please not another.
That's stressful.
Please not another. But you can set those up. You can choose how you want it, right? So that's the click of a button. And we know that there's some great stuff out there.
So the next one is planning ahead. We can use calendars like paper calendar or whiteboard calendar. Also Google Calendar if you are good at using your phone. And we can use paper and for weekly and monthly planners.
So we have a handout just kind of reminding you of the key components of time management too. That task prioritization, how to get there, how to plan ahead using this. And then we're going to talk more about utilizing time efficiently in a moment. Again, with the calendar, the best part of kind of keeping to your goals in the task management is having it visible and accessible. So whatever that is for you, if it's a printed calendar on the fridge, because you're going to see that every morning, that is just as valuable as a calendar on your phone if you are someone who's kind of tied to their smartphone. If you know you have a daily routine of checking emails or checking bills, wherever you would do that, that's going to be a great place for that calendar. That's the kind of thing that can kind of keep you organized and on track with these goals. And write your goals on your calendar. Make it a to-do list. Just like you're going to pay your bill, you got to have that goal attached, and you can name them, you can subgroup them. Goal number 1, that's due date for that, those kinds of things.
So next is the reminder checklist, and we recommend the first one is Google Keep. It can be an app you can download on your phone, or you can get through on your computer. It links to your Google account, and they accept different types of note like text, list, imaging, or audio. And there is another online tools called Todo Lists, and you can set up your daily or weekly checklist and highlight the priority task, which we talked before. And always, like Brenda mentioned, that pen and paper is also good. You can write down your goals, and you can write down your list, and to tap that on your fridge to check in every time when you go to your kitchen.
Google Keep is a cool tool if you are a little bit more tech savvy or use Google products at all. It is free, you download it, but you can write these to-do lists and share them with others. I actually tell people, I like to, for medication lists, I actually have my medications on a Google Keep that I've shared with my husband, so if there's ever an emergency, he can see it. But for goal writing, it's particularly helpful because you could get an accountability buddy, which is the cute little term for just someone else to hold you accountable. So say you have a friend, you're all here, maybe you know that you have a goal and somebody you meet here has a goal. You can kind of check in with each other on this, share what you're doing, how you're keeping things going, and now you have a check-in person to help you stay motivated as well for whatever those goals are, which is a great little feature. It's also really nice for grocery lists because you have it wherever you go.
The next one is complete tasks effectively and timely. Like before you make the plan, think about how long that task can take and give you a timer. We'll experience that if we give us a lot of time for certain tasks, we will spend a long time distract, thinking about the other stuff. We now focus on the task itself. So use a timer is really helpful. You can use your phone, or you can use a website, like you open Google and type in how many have a timer for X minutes, and it can help you to do that.
Setting it, there's a lot of science behind timers, and to Song's point, if you give yourself unlimited time for something, you will take unlimited time for something. So setting concrete timelines, even I'm gonna clean my house for an hour. I'm gonna finish these dishes in 15 minutes. If you go over in 16 minutes, it doesn't matter to some extent, but even just setting that timer so that you don't end up wasting 45 minutes. Because how many of us, it takes 10 minutes to get off the couch sometimes. You're like, oh, I gotta do that. I'm just gonna sit here for another 10 minutes. I know I'm guilty of that all the time.
So next we will talk about health activities. In this part, we will talk about health and medication management, and physical activity, and nutrition, and hobbies or leisure activity.
So we're going to go a little bit quicker through this in the interest of time, okay? So with health and medication management, one of the most important things, visit your primary care doctor regularly to make sure you're staying on top of things. Also, when you're meeting with them, have them plan out your year. What tests do I need to get done this year? And I know you're like, well, that sounds a little bit madness. But remember, you only have 15 minutes. Tell them, what do I need to do this year? And when do I need to do it? So that you can get it on your calendar early. If you know you need a mammogram, if you know you need to see a certain specialist, you need to go to the cardiologist, get that list ahead of time so that you can already plan it out. You're more likely to do it. Store medications where you can easily get them, so that we have a whole list of resources too. If you need them, you can contact our clinic with all of our information. But medication management is one of the hardest tasks that we have to do, especially when they're changing frequently. So how we set that up to make sure we're successful. Carrying a list of medications in case of emergency, using pill organizers to make sure, especially portable pill organizers, if you know you have a medication that you're going to have to take in the middle of the day. One thing that we also like is there's this app called MediSafe. You can use it on your computer as well, so it's computer and smartphone accessible. And it's a nice way to keep track of your medication. So it has everything listed, so then you can just pull it up when you're at your doctor's office and have everything up to date. If you're traveling ever and you forget a medication, you can go to the pharmacist, this is my medication list, and they can kind of make things a little bit easier as well.
So for physical activity, there are multiple forms of physical activities we recommend it. So for endurance, like we can walk, like previous mentioned, we can biking, or we can dancing. For strength, we can do some body weight exercise to against resist band. For balance, we can do something like Tai Chi. I saw there is a class tab on the board, like they hold Tai Chi classes. And for stability, we can do something like stretch, and we have held for that also.
So remember, with any physical activity, you always want to get your doctor's clearance to make sure you're healthy for whatever type of physical activity you have, especially if you have orthopedic issues, joints that have been replaced, et cetera, you want to make sure that you're cleared for all those kinds of things. But the hardest thing about physical activity, and I don't have to tell you this, is actually how do you fit it in, right? So that's a big complaint for a lot of us. One thing that's really helpful is to try to take shortcuts to your exercise. So what does that look like? Parking further away, if that's something that you can do, so that you're getting more steps in. I like to put exercise equipment in my living room, so that at TV commercials, or if I'm watching a show with my husband and he goes to the bathroom, it's right there. I could do a couple things with a band in that 10 minutes. We think of exercises carving out this giant hour of time. How many of you view exercise like that? You're like, oh, I got to carve out an hour to go to the gym or something. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be easy and accessible for your lifestyle. Classes are great and really beneficial, but they're a huge chunk of time. So think about how we can make it easier. Can we put things in other rooms where we know we're going to have to go up the steps to get them, and then get a couple extra steps? Parking further away. Putting the equipment where it's accessible, where I know it's going to see it. If you want to stretch in the morning, can you put your stretch out strap right next to your bed so that you roll over, you see it, now you got no excuse not to do those exercises. So these shortcuts are the way to do it. We've provided some handouts and some information on some good programs, some of these specifically for older adults, for exercise on the bottom of this handout as well. Local gyms, YMCAs. YouTube has a lot of great videos. Again, speak with your physician about your own medical concerns and safety, but this could be a great way to start incorporating things in. Okay,
So nutrition, make sure you're eating a variety of food from each food group can help you reduce the risk of chronic disease, like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. And we need to maintain our body mass. As we age, we decrease our muscle mass. We need to get enough proteins, and also focus on the nutrition that you need, like calcium, vitamin D, and dietary fiber, vitamin 12. All those are good for our vessels, good for our bones, or good for our nerves.
So the interesting thing is too, why we want to hit on nutrition is when you have high levels of stress, did you know your body actually burns through key nutrients and food at a higher rate and may not be absorbing as much? So this is why a lot of times you feel extra tired when you feel extra stressed. It's a lot of cognitive load, and it's actually taxing your physical systems at a higher level. So getting extra nutrients when you feel stressed is actually really beneficial for you to help maintain your current level of health even when you are
Getting
stressed.
extra what?
Any extra nutrients.
Extra what?
Nutrients, vitamins, good, healthy for you.
Nutrients, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, there is a website called My Plate Plan. It can decide what the nutrition is needed for you based on your age, your height, your weight, your physical activities. So it's really good. You can try that. It's based on health.
Yeah, that's a great resource, and you can kind of go in and also customize it. So it will give you some recommended food groups, some things you might want to try and incorporate, but you can also change it to your preferences. If you hate lentils, you don't have to eat them, but it'll kind of help you organize that.
So next is for hobbies or leisure activities. We have a lot of examples and resources provided for our health. And like if you are like reading books, you can use the Google Playbook or Audible, which can provide audio books, and you can buy that and you can hearing rather than reading, and when you are walking or something like that. Yeah.
So we have some specific examples for specific hobbies that you might be interested in. We often find that hobbies are the first thing to go during periods of stress. which is kind of ironic because there's so much research that engagement in your hobbies actually lowers your stress at a really high rate. So that's something that you definitely want to not cut out if you have the ability to, which again is why thinking about your day-to-day routine and your priorities can really help you kind of reclaim hobbies that maybe have gone to the wayside. But there's a lot of things, and this is really nice. Again, a lot of us carry a phone around everywhere we go, so these are things too. Some of these apps you can kind of plug in waiting rooms. If you're I think the last time I was at my doctor, I was in the waiting room for like 25 minutes. I could have read a book, I could have had an audio book, I could have been looking at that, all kinds of things. So just keep myself and my mind active, and hobbies are the best ways to do that.
Yeah, so next we talk about active coping. In this section we'll talk about positive self-talk, challenge to catastrophic thinking, and of course relaxation techniques. So there are different coping styles. The first one is over control, like people over control, like think they can control the situation they couldn't. And there are some people like under control in their style, like they think they have not enough control of the situation. And the third one is surrenders. Some people like feel they couldn't control that. They just do nothing, like surrender away. So the last one is active coping styles. It's like we can either actively coping the stress itself, either by changing the nature of the situation or change their views about the situation.
So coping styles are something that we all have a tendency towards one or the other potentially. The best is active coping. That's what we really want to strive for. But you may start to think about things. When you get stressed, how many of you kind of try to control every aspect of everything when you get stressed? You got to know every detail. You got to be in control. That can actually make things harder to cope with stress versus under controlling and surrendering. These are kind of two levels of the same scale where you maybe just kind of back off and don't do anything. If you're one of those folks who shuts down when stress gets really overwhelming, that's what that is. So we want to start to use active coping skills. Active coping skills can go two ways, and it says either change the nature of the situation or change how we think about it. So you have to ask yourself with this situation, is this something I can change is the first question. So if you've just been diagnosed with a chronic health condition, maybe you found out you had diabetes, right? That's a very common one, unfortunately. Can you change the fact that you had diabetes? No. Probably not. You can do things to help it, right? You can do things to manage your diabetes, but ultimately that is a condition that you're going to have to kind of watch out for now the rest of your life. So I can't change it, but I can change how I think about it and how I deal with it. I can start to think this is an opportunity to get myself healthy, to get in control of my eating, to be on top of my exercise because now I have this condition. So changing how we think about it or changing our actions. And depending on the situation, we want to do one or the other.
Yeah, the first active coping style is like positive self-talk. Like we can write down the positive words and phrases and then read it aloud to ourselves. Like, I'm grateful for what I have. So before I came here, I just told myself, I can do this. I can speak good English. I can finish this presentation. So that is something like positive talk. You can do that every day in the morning or before you go to bed.
So that diabetes diagnosis, I can manage this. I can do this. That positive self-talk has been shown to lead to better outcomes. So if you know you're one of those people who tends to negative self-talk, this might be a great SMART goal to write. I will give myself 3 positive self-talking experiences in the next week. I will say 3 positive things about myself.
So next one is challenging the catastrophic thinking.
I'm going to take this one from you, Sam. Okay, so catastrophic thinking we've all done. This is when we start to really just nosedive into the negativity, and you know exactly what I'm saying. This happened, now this is going to happen, now this is going to happen, and somehow we get down the rabbit hole of really thinking negative, bad thoughts, right? We've all done this.
What ifs?
Yes, the what ifs, when the what if trigger,
I
right?
have them all the time.
Yes, so catastrophic thinking is kind of we're creating a stressful situation that may or may not actually happen, and that increases stress dramatically. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to start to break this up. If you know you do this, we got to get rid of this because this is that spiraling that leads you to more stress and less coping, okay? Identify your stressful situation. What's happening? What is actually happening? And it has to be the things that are currently happening, not the What could happen after? What could it morph to? What is right now? Identify your emotion. How does it make me feel? Does it make me feel overwhelmed, sad, angry? What's going on? Think about the best case scenario. What's the best case scenario? A lot of the time, nothing really changes. I figure out a new way to do something. I move on from this in 3 weeks. Something along those lines. How would any of those make you feel? If any of those make me feel, I would feel so much better. I would feel so much relaxed. That's where we're going to funnel our thinking. We're going to find the most likely scenario, which is usually the middle ground. So usually we find the best case and then the likely. What do we think is actually going to happen with this? Okay, I'm going to have a hard conversation. I'm going to have to change my diet. I'm going to have to take medication at a different schedule. I'm going to have to find a new place to live, etc., etc. And then identify the plan and strategies. This is where your SMART goals come in again. What's your plan? What's your achievable step to start doing it?
So there are a lot of relaxation techniques, and we have a handle for that, and it is different, like body scanning and progress muscle relaxation, belly breathe, and
so let's all do these ones together. We're winding down. The presentation is almost over, so let's all take a minute to do some of these together. Song's going to demonstrate, and I'm going to talk you through them.
Okay.
So body scanning, what you're going to do is you're going to find a comfortable position. You're all seated, so you're already doing the first one right. You're going to close your eyes, and you're going to bring attention first to your toes. So try to feel your toes. Do you feel your toes? Maybe give them a little wiggle. Give them a little foot pump in there. Feel that blood coming through it. Feel that movement. Working up from your toes, you're going to start to bring awareness to each body part next. So then you're going to feel your ankles. Move your ankles a little bit around. You're going to try to feel your calves. Maybe pump your feet to feel those calf muscles moving. Move to your knees. And go up your body slow and methodical, maybe spending like 5 to 10 seconds on each body part, okay? As you start to do this, you're going to really focus on just thinking about the body part that you're working on. So if you're on your knees, you're thinking about your knees. If you're on your hips, you're thinking about your hips. We're going to go through nice and easy. If you start to feel any tension, you're going to really focus on just breathing and relaxing the tension to the spot you feel tension. Your mind might wander when you do this. That's okay. That's totally fine. Bring it back to what you're thinking about with your body. The next tool that you can use when you're kind of feeling overwhelmed or feeling stressful is what we call progressive muscle relaxation. There's a lot of science behind this one, and it kind of sounds a little counterintuitive, but it works really well. So we either say sit or lie down, and what you want to start doing is, again, breathing slowly. Just paying attention to your breath to start out with. And what you're going to do now is, whereas before we were given like little wiggles and just trying to find the parts of our body, now we're going to intentionally tense our body and hold that tension for about 3 seconds in the parts of our body and then relax it, okay? So starting with our toes and feet, Song's going to squeeze her toes as hard as she can for 3 seconds while she's inhaling, and then she's going to exhale and relax her feet. Going to count to 5, and then she's going to do the next one. So now she's going to squeeze her calf muscles as hard as she can for 3 seconds. And then she's going to relax, count to 5, exhale, let everything out. And she's going to move up her body again. You can start with your feet. You can actually start with your face. It doesn't matter which way you go with this as long as you're working in an opposite direction. Squeezing those muscles and then relaxing them. This is a great technique to help you fall asleep at night also. We really like this one to help sleep, especially when you're focusing on your thoughts. Write your to-do list, do a brain dump, and then do some progressive muscle relaxation. You're going to find it's a lot easier to sleep. The next one that we like is called diaphragmatic breathing. And there's a lot of evidence that this actually really helps people who have conditions like COPD and asthma. So if that's you, this is a great one to start practicing. So what you're going to do is you're going to put one hand on your chest, just like Song, she's doing it for us, and you're going to put one hand on your belly. And what you're going to, just below your rib cage, so you see she's right below her ribs, right on that, right above her belly button, but below her ribs. You're going to slowly breathe in through your nose. Think about filling your belly. As you do this, you should feel your belly push out. Do you feel your belly push out? And you should feel your chest. You shouldn't feel anything in your chest. Chest shouldn't move. So if you're feeling your chest move, we want to try to think about expanding our belly as we breathe in. Okay? And then your stomach should push towards your hand. That's your cue. You're doing the belly breathing. And then you're going to slowly exhale. You want to feel that belly suck in. And again, your chest isn't moving, just your belly, in and out. In through your nose, breathe in. Feel the belly fill up. Out through your mouth, feel the belly go down. Chest not moving. There's a lot of evidence that practicing diaphragmatic breathing for just 10 minutes a day can lower stress levels, lower blood pressure, and really help you if you have any lung conditions, okay? The last technique that can be really helpful is a little hokier. And again, I said some of you might like some of these, some of you might not like some of these, remember? Guided imagery is kind of imagining positive situations in your brain, imagining positive things or things that bring you comfort in your brain. So what you're going to do again, sit, lie down in a very comfortable area, take a couple really relaxing deep breaths. You can actually use your diaphragmatic breathing to start out. That's a great way to kind of relax your body. And then what you're going to do is imagine a peaceful scene, something that brings you comfort. And this is going to be different for every person. Maybe you're at a park. Maybe you're at a family barbecue. Maybe you are sitting at the end of a yoga class because you think that's so relaxing. Whatever it is for you, and you're going to imagine that. And you're going to go really slowly through the sounds, the scents, and the sensations. You're going to think, what does it sound like? You're going to try to imagine those sounds. What does it smell like? Can you imagine those smells? And then what does it feel like? Maybe you can imagine the sun on your skin is a very relaxing one for a lot of people. You're going to envision yourself in that space, walking around, engaging as you have those smells and sounds. And then you're going to just sit there for several minutes relaxing. Just doing this for about 3 to 5 minutes has again been shown to lower blood pressure and sometimes even decrease pain. So if you're someone who lives with chronic pain, there's a ton of research that this is actually a really good technique to try to help you feel less pain in the moment. If you can turn your brain off and focus on this happy, peaceful place, okay? So we have a couple other additional resources on top of these exercises on this handout that we like. YouTube actually has some resources to kind of help you through some of the guided imagery and diaphragmatic breathing. If you just Google them, they'll come right on up on YouTube and you can kind of watch these structured videos to help you, especially if you're a person who, when I was talking about this, you could feel your brain wandering. You're like, what do I got to do next? I got to go to the grocery store. I have a whole list to do. If that's you, these can be a great resource to kind of help you organize yourself. Insight Timer is a really nice one. There's a lot of relaxation videos and sounds that you could kind of play while you're trying to sleep to try to help you get in that mindset. And then the Free Mindfulness Project is a really, really great one that can kind of help you start some of these. So all of these are techniques that do increase mindfulness, but we know that that kind of lowers, again, a lot of chronic illness conditions and flare-ups and things of that nature.
So the next topic for our presentation is about social support. We will talk about nurturing existing relationships and make new friends and volunteer. So it is important for us to make time to spend with our families, with our friends, and to stay in touch with each other, like through phone calls or through video chat. So you can invite your loved ones to join you during your daily activity, like go outside to walk or do some exercise, like dancing or something together. And also, it is important for us to have those social support. When we need help, we can ask that for help. So next one is making new friends. We found some local events for Chestnut Hill. Like the first one is second Saturday, and the second one is Home and Garden Festival. I think this one comes on May 1st, and it have a lot of winter and sellings for the whole Germantown Avenue. And if you are interested in that, you can call me and find some people have the same interest and make new friends, know each other, maybe hang out with each other later. So there is a website called Meetup. It provides a lot of online or in-person type of friend groups. Like you can type the topic of the group and you can find the other people who are interested, and you can meet each other whether in person or whether online.
So these can be kind of good, especially if you have some niche interests that you're willing to explore. So I, like one of my strange, weird hobbies is I actually grow mushrooms. Edible mushrooms, this is what I'm into, my hobby these days. Well, I can't really do it right now because you're not supposed to do that while you're pregnant. But I like to grow mushrooms, so I've actually been able to find some through similar Facebook groups and meetup organizations, other people who do that, and now I have kind of a network of people who can give me tips when things aren't going. Never met these people, but it's just nice to kind of have these social supports, especially when you have kind of niche interests, or maybe it's something to expand. Maybe you go to a church that you really like, but they don't have a great Bible study or something like that, and this is a great way to kind of find those folks.
Yeah, next one is volunteer. Like we found one in local, it's WKM, and Face to Face in Germantown. It's partnership with the PCCH, this church, and it helps with the food distribution. So you can find more information online, at least on our Hangout.
So these do like Meals on Wheels type programs, or you could then be, if you have a driver's license and you feel comfortable driving, to kind of go out and help. Volunteering is a great way to lower your stress, believe it or not, even though it takes a chunk of time. The pride and the happiness that we get from that is, again, proven to kind of help lower blood pressure, all of those good positive things that we want. And there's a lot of great ways to do it. AmeriCorps also has a specific branch for older adults to help out with, and some of this is adults helping other adults. Some of this is intergenerational things, so that which has again been shown to be very helpful for maintaining cognitive function, working intergenerationally. But this can be a great resource as well. And you can just create a profile, submit it, and then they'll contact you when opportunities are available to you. This might be a little bit more commitment for some of you, but if you're looking for something kind of like a part-time, keep yourself occupied because you really want to get back and give back, this is a great way to do it. So that concludes our presentation. We hope you found a couple tools and little tricks that might be helpful for you to investigate later. It's been a real pleasure talking to all of you. You can always reach out to us at the bottom of your handouts at our clinic and send us any follow-up questions. If you're kind of someone who likes this but really feels you need a little bit more structure, we can even work with you to try to help work through some of these things on your own, set your SMART goals, all of that kind of stuff.